Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here and welcome back to another Division video. And in today's video, I want to do something a little bit different. If you guys have been following this game for a while now, then you will know that the Division is a classless RPG. And what I mean by that is that you are not forced to play as one of three very specific archetypes at the beginning of the game, which you're then locked into for eternity. Instead, the game adopts a classless approach, allowing you to pick and choose your skills on the fly and change your setup to match your encounter. However, just because the game adopts a classless system, that does not mean to say that the notion of classes do not exist. Thanks to the available skills, it's still very much possible to assume the role of, say, a tank, healer, support, or DPS if you set yourself up right. And that brings me on to today's topic. In this video, I want to talk about my recommended build for anyone looking to play the tank. Of course, until the game launches, I won't actually be able to test the effectiveness of this build, so what I'm about to show you is partly built on my experience playing as a high-level agent at the event I went to in Malmo, where I had access to all skills and talents, and the other part is a healthy dose of theory crafting. So don't by any means take this as the definitive tank build, but you can instead see this as something to try out in March. If you guys do enjoy this video, then a like would be super appreciated, and also comment down below and let me know what you think. Perhaps you disagree, maybe you have your own ideas. Either way, let me know. So to begin with, before we talk about skills and talents, we need to start at the very top and talk about attributes. Attribute points, as you guys know by now, affect your agent in a number of different ways. In short, firearms affect your overall DPS, stamina affects your overall health, and electronics affects your overall skill power. Different items of gear carry different attribute values, and as such, the gear that you equip dictates the type of agent you are. Now, the role of a tank is to be up front, draw the aggro from the enemies, and take the brunt of the damage, while the team behind can then dish out the damage or heal depending on their setup. So with that in mind, the most important attributes for a tank are stamina and electronics. Firearms, on the other hand, not so much, simply because as a tank it's not your job to kill, you are simply there to act as a shield between your team and the enemies. And the reason I say you need both stamina and firearms and not just a crap ton of stamina for a big health bar is simply because while yes, if you went 100% stamina you'd have a ton of health, without skill power the skills that you're going to use to allow you to tank will be nowhere near as effective. So in an ideal world, all your gear would carry both of these attributes so that at the end of the game they're both as high as possible. Now let's talk about skills. To begin with, your primary skill as a tank will be the ballistic shield. Using this skill equips a portable ballistic shield that absorbs damage, but whilst carrying this, you can only use a sidearm. On top of that, one of the lesser known features of this skill that perhaps isn't advertised as much as it should be, is that having this up in combat also draws aggro. And to those of you perhaps not familiar with the MMO term, aggro is basically the attention of enemies. If you have the shield and you and your team are in a group of enemies, they're more likely to attack you than they are your team, because your skill draws aggro. You'd then want to use the Kinetic Breaker mod because that grants a small portion of the incoming damage to you as healing. So while you're sitting there taking shots and your shield's getting damaged, you're also healing yourself slightly. And once you have the Master mod unlocked, your shield will also slowly repair itself to full health after taking no damage for a short period of time. So in between fights, if your shield wasn't destroyed, it would simply repair over time. It's also worth noting that the reason we have a high electronic skill is because with greater skill power, the ballistic shield can also take more hits before it's destroyed. So were you to try and tank with, say, all stamina and no skill power, your shield would get destroyed very, very quickly. Moving over to our second skill, for this we're jumping over to the medical tree, and the reason for that is because the rest of the base security skills aren't really relevant to tanking. The latter skills are more cover based, and hiding behind cover isn't the role of a tank. For your second skill, I've actually got two recommendations, and these will vary depending on your encounter. If you're moving through a mission, tanking as you go, then you'd equip the first aid skill with the overdose mod. This heals the target more efficiently and has a chance to extend the target's health beyond its normal rating. And as you know, the first aid gun can either be fired at your team or used on yourself. And some of you may question why a tank has a healing skill. I mean, surely if we're breaking things into archetypes, shouldn't that be the role of the healer? And while ordinarily I would agree, I think it's really important to have because if you're tanking the enemy fire and your shield breaks, you're going to want to keep your health bar topped up, especially when you are naturally stronger thanks to your high stamina. The alternative skill, once again another healing one, I'd recommend more for boss encounters. Times where you might not be moving around quite so much but are instead standing still, taking fire and protecting your team. For this role, I go down one more and select the support station. This is a healing item that you throw on the ground and it heals everyone standing inside a radius. Pair this with the ammo cache mod, which gradually regens ammo and more importantly, makes skill cooldowns faster. This means should your shield break, you'll be able to get it back much quicker. However, if you're fighting enemies that dish out status effects like bleed or burn, you can instead change that for the Immunizer mod, which removes status effects and makes allies immune whilst in the area. And finally, the signature skill, and of course for this one we are going back to the security tree, and we're going to pick up Survivor Link, which increases damage resistance and speed for the user and nearby allies. So, those are your recommended skills, but it doesn't end there. Now let's talk about recommended talents. You can equip 4 of those in total. Firstly, down the medical tree, I'd take Critical Save. If you use a medkit during low health, you can increase your damage resistance by 40% for 10 seconds. Following on from that, I'd take Strike Back. Also down the medical tree, which reduces your active skill cooldowns by 20% if you reach low health. After that, down the security tree, I'd take On the Move, where if you kill a hostile while moving, you reduce incoming damage by 30% for 10 seconds. So that's especially useful if you're, say, pushing forwards with the shield and you happen to kill someone with your sidearm. And finally, also down the security tree, you have the Repo Reaper. If you kill a hostile with your sidearm, you receive 1 magazine for your primary weapon. And while you won't be using your primary weapon that much, because of course your riot shield only allows you to use your sidearm, when your shield does eventually break, you will of course need to resort back to your primary until your skill cooldown finishes. So keeping your primary stocked up through sidearm kills is also going to prove very useful. And that's pretty much it. Those are the attributes, skills and talents I would personally recommend if you want to play tank using a ballistic shield in the Division. Again, as mentioned, this is a bit of theory crafting on my part, so don't take this as gospel, but if you're looking for something to try out, then definitely give this a shot. If you guys did enjoy this and would perhaps like to see suggested builds for other archetypes, then let me know down below, and thanks for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.